Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons, and here with me for this episode is Kit Rackley, the Education and Program Officer for the World Energy and Meteorology Council. Kit, how about you give us a rundown of who you are, what you do, just a great introduction of before we get started.
Okay, thank you, Adam, and thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm the Education and Programme Officer for the World Energy and Meteorology Council, and I'll talk a bit about them very shortly. But I'm also a freelance educator and blogger in my spare time, and I mostly focus on current geographical affairs. So it's always quite a busy time for us geographers, but especially now with everything that's going on.
Oh, awesome. Great. And can you tell us a little bit more about the World Energy and Meteorology Council, what that is, and what is the mission of this organization?
Yeah, right. So World Energy and Meteorology Council, or WEMC, as we say for short, is one of the many organisations have been contracted by various people to help develop, provide and services, but mostly to do with getting people from the meteorological sector and the energy sector together. So this would be academics, it could be climate scientists, it could be weather forecasters, and then pairing the work that they do with energy experts and people in the industry from fossil fuels, renewables, and enhancing the networks, getting them to collaborate with each other, trying to do cross research and interdisciplinary research. And we mainly focus on the renewable energy. So to give you a really good example, we run projects and events where we get the energy industry to be more resilient for climate change, for example. So we get all those meteorologists and climatologists in together, and they do all the work. They use a lot of geospatial stuff, and then they kind of work with the energy industry to kind of get best to work on like resilience to do with climate change, or where best to site a wind farm. So it's pretty exciting, really. And the other work that we do, kind of the third element, which is kind of my responsibility, is the education side of things. So, for example, I help with the training of people in the energy industry who need to kind of brush up on their meteorology, so they can use that data and all of that stuff inside of their work, and vice versa for people in the academic meteorology sector. What does the energy industry need? But with my experience as a high school teacher, we're also trying to bring all of this work into the general public and into high schools as well. And it's led by Professor Alberto Troccoli, who's exceptionally experienced in this kind of stuff. He's worked for many major agencies, and he's the managing director who oversees all of the stuff that WEMC does.
Awesome. Well, this is a great transition. You talking about the education effort that you're doing, because I think I got aware of what you're doing from a geospatial related project that you have, from an outreach to, I'd say, the general public and educators out there, right? And that would be related to the C3S Climate and Energy Education Demo. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is something I've been working on for almost a year now. So I'm the project manager, and Alberto Troccoli, who I've already mentioned, is the project leader on this. And it's really tapped into my expertise as a high school teacher, which I was before I did this job. But to give a more bigger background, because it's actually relevant and it will be interesting from a geospatial point of view, is that this demonstrator is part of a project that WEMC as a contractor are delivering for the Copernicus Climate Change Service, or from now on I'll say C3S for short. And C3S is one of the 6 EU Copernicus Earth Observation Programme services that provides climate data and information in many guises that covers the whole world, so not just Europe. Although, having said that, it's implemented by the European Centre for Medium Range Weather Forecasts on behalf of the EU and the European Commission. Now, if ECMWF, their acronym, sounds very familiar to you or to your listeners and to your viewers, it's probably because they may have heard them through a weather forecasting. So they're very renowned for weather forecasting modelling, and they work with many agencies and governments worldwide. And ECMWF have got a bit of a track record for having some of the best weather forecasting modelling out there, and it seems to be the one to beat especially for short-term forecasts and medium-range forecasts. So But to carry on with a little bit more of the background, users of C3S, they can explore and understand past climate trends, the current situation, or what the future might bring, using tools and data based on the robust science and research that comes into it. And that's what's really good about the C3S project is it works with the top scientists and academics around the world. For example, for this project, I've been speaking to leading physicists from the University of Patras in Greece. Also been working with climate scientists from where I'm based at the University of East Anglia, who are, part of the lead authors of the IPCC reports. I've worked with energy experts from EDF, which is the big French company. And C3S kind of gathers all those people together and kind of really does develop these services. And let's say what would really interest your listeners really most is that C3S and the other Copernicus services that get run, they do absolutely amazing things with geospatial information. So, I mean, people should go ahead and look at their website, really. But the best way to preview about what Copernicus and C3S do is to go on the Twitter feed, the Copernicus_ECMWF Twitter feed, and just scroll down the outputs and the stuff that they do and some of the screenshots and stuff. But one of my really favorite ones recently is, I think it's only a couple of days ago they put it off, was this really good geospatial graphic of how air pollution has reduced around the world, but particularly over China due to the global response to COVID-19, for example. And that's from the, I think it's from their atmospheric Copernicus atmospheric monitor.
No, I've been seeing a lot of those types of graphics, and I'm not sure those are that's the only organization putting that stuff out. I think the NASA, NOAA, and a few others are doing something similar as well. But
Absolutely.
Just to see that change on a global level is impressive, and that they do share that type of data, not just the graphics, but the data that goes along with that, so people can take advantage of that and try to dive in and understand it a lot more deeply, even from an educational standpoint.
Yeah, and so that's their remit, and that's the thing that they do is that they want their data is free and that they put it accessible out there. And in fact, you talk about some of the things that you can see everywhere else, and I kind of did an intern with, a placement with NOAA, so I know the kind of stuff that they can do. But for example, over in your side of the pond in the United States, media outlets such as the Washington Post and the New York Times have regularly picked up on C3S findings based on the C3S monthly climate bulletins, based on the temperature records that have taken place, and they've sourced them. So these really big US media outlets have been sourcing C3S stuff because they've usually been the first to get that kind of thing out, and then other people have followed suit and corroborated on that because they all really work together, to be honest. But
yeah. So can you take a step back a little bit and let's talk about the educators now? You have this demo. Do you want to show it real quick?
Absolutely, yeah. So I had to give that context just to show you how this then come about. So I talked about the data. So if we show the screen here, I can show you. So I talked about the free data that's accessible. So all of what you see here is based on the data that's made available through the C3S, through the Copernicus Climate Change Service. So what we've done here is that we've got a simple, remember this is for Europe, but we are going to be working on it to make it global and worldwide.
That was one of my next questions, by the way, because I did have a dive into it myself, and I'm like, it says world, but I am still only looking at Europe. What's going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. So at the moment, the data that it uses from the C3S Climate data store which I'll talk about in a minute, is aging now, but this is a demonstrator. It means we're showing what the data from the CDS is capable of doing. That's why the name demo is in there. So, For example, what I've done here, I've broken you up into some subdivisions here, and we can see a lovely little choropleth map here about how, on average, in 2016, it was, as you'd expect, warmer down here in the south of Europe and cooler. But as I drag this slider through into projected data, it's all integrated into one, you can see how those reds become more prominent than those blues. So that's the kind of simple thing that we can do there.
Well, what exactly are we looking at here? What is this showing?
Okay, so taking a step back. So this is average air temperatures for these regions of Europe. So these have been aggregated into yearly figures. So this is the yearly figure. So 2016, Central France's annual average temperature for 2016 was 11.72 degrees Celsius.
And those who might be listening on the audio side here, just with the audio format, what he has is a sort of a density map plot across Europe showing once again, you said the air density or the airspeed?
Air temperature.
Air temperature across Europe in different areas of Europe here. So we'll continue to describe the best way possible of what Kit is showing here.
Okay, yeah. So that's good. It's good to know we have some audio. So I'll be a little bit more clearer with my descriptors. So we have a slider here in the bottom right, and as I slide it in this red area here between 1979 and the demo data is up to 2016. This gives us all the historical data. This is reanalysis bias adjusted data. And then when I drag it into this hashed area up to 2100, we've now got projected data based on climate model projections. And if I click on any area, so if I go to my area, because I'm based right here in the east of England, so if I click on it, I now get a really lovely plot here. So we've got historical plot here in orange, and you can certainly see that historical record of only the last 40 years is, well,
it's impressive. So you're not just plotting a graph, you're seeing a graph alongside when you click on that location of what's going on, not just of the historical data, but with the projected data as well, with the time frame that you selected.
Absolutely. And so our developers have decided to use something called AM charts. I don't know if you are aware of AM charts or AM charts. So this is a repository, like a JavaScript library of all these different visualizations, and you can just plug them into them, and then you can draw them out and use API and things like that. And
that's the one thing I'll say about this application is that it is nice, clean, and it's intuitive. It's not overly crowded or messy in terms of too many buttons or things that I have to maneuver through. And that's what I like about it. It helps get to the point and keep things simple for the user.
Absolutely. And that is absolutely key. And because we are the primary target audience of this, I call it a geographical information system, because as high school teachers in the United Kingdom, I'm certain everywhere else as well, that's what they'll recognize this as a GIS. And they want to use this with their students, with their high school students. And we've actually developed this in consultation with teachers and high school students in Europe, particularly here in the east of England, who I've worked with quite closely. I've actually gone into schools and got some feedback and some valuation and about how they've enjoyed it and what they feel has worked and what's not worked. So that's very heartening to hear you say that. And the students we're talking about, so high school, it's the same as the United States. They're roughly 11 to 18 over here. So high school for you would be 13 to 18, wouldn't it, I guess? But yes, you can, and then you can change variables at the top here. So wind speed. So if I look at precipitation, and then you get the map of precipitation appears here. You've got lovely little relief impact of precipitation you can see there, or orographic effect as we like to say. So, and then we've also got some energy ones here as well. So wind energy, for example, which we know is pretty productive here in Europe. Did you know that Europe has the UK receives 40% of Europe's wind resource because of all of the air masses that we get coming off of the Atlantic Ocean? So that's why the UK is pretty prevalent for wind energy. And that wind energy is coming from turbines that are actually out in the ocean, correct? Yes. So offshore wind is a very big industry here in Europe, particularly in the United Kingdom, and at the moment we've got ready for, I think it's just come online. If not, it's going to come online. But here in this part, if you can see my cursor, so where I'm pointing here is in the Irish Sea, just off the west coast of Great Britain. I can't remember exactly what its name is, but one of the biggest extensions of offshore wind farms is going to come online, and it will make that wind farm the biggest in the world. And then the UK will have the top three biggest offshore wind farms will be in the United Kingdom. One there, and there's one there, and one there. So
that's awesome. I can't wait to see that on an image.
Oh yeah, just have a look from the London Array. Pictures of the London Array, very impressive. I go and have a look at that.
So, as talking about these different data sources, is there a way for, let's say, you have some savvier educators out there that are a little bit of a step ahead of their peers and say, I like your interface, but I actually want to get a hold of your data directly from some of the what I'm seeing in here, this interface. Where can I go? It's like, okay, grab the air temperature, the precipitation, and say, hey, I want to grab that data and bring it into my platform that I already have for my students.
Awesome. Yeah, so there's two ways we offer that. So we have data that is feeding the map itself. So as you can imagine, this will be temporal set data, so going from here to here. And then you've got data that we also display in the graph. So if I just show the one from the map first, and we use this little button up here. Now, of course, this is a demonstrator, so things may shift around and move as we finalize things. But to download data from the map, we can click this button here, and just open it. And for me, I'll open in Excel because I've got it by default open in Excel. And there we go. So this is all of the climate model data for the whole of Europe for air temperature. And I think we had, what did we have selected? We had the low emission scenario selected. So we are now looking at the low emission scenario data for the whole of Europe. So it's, and then you can run joy. If you're a spreadsheet geek and you love data analysis, you can just, well, I don't know about your listeners, but I could spend hours on this and doing.
Oh yeah, no. Is there a good descriptor text file that comes along with it that describes the fields involved, what they actually mean, and how you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't have anything like that at the moment, or no metadata at the moment. Again, the main reason is because we're just demonstrating what this is capable of. But once we've gone past the demo phase and it becomes to like the live active phase, and we're actually going to be using it as develop it into a product that people can use, we fully intend to ensure that those columns, so if I download the graph now, you'll see like the next step, if you like, because we have a bit more control over these ones. So if I download the Excel of this, see again, a little bit of quirks there because we're still under a demo development here. But you'll see we've at least given some reasonable headers here, rather than some codes, historical, high, low. But the next step that we want to do, of course, is actually to have some data up here, have this a bit more descriptive, or maybe some description text, or whatever it is. But that is something we're definitely going to have down the line once we've gone through this demonstration development phase.
No. Okay. So great. Two questions.
So this is now looking at the graph data. So I looked at, so this is the United Kingdom's air temperature.
Yeah, let me ask two questions real quick, Kit. While you have things under development, what's the timeline for getting this out of demo? And the second question is, while things are in demo, or if folks like seeing what you have and say, hey, I got some feedback for you, what's the best way to reach out?
Okay, so the contract for C3S ends at the end of this month, actually. So what that means is that we need a viable demonstrator for them to take a branch, and then they will put that branch onto their servers and on their website, and then they will run that. And then after which, WEMC will be free to then develop their own branch, however they so wish. So the demo stage will be over, but then development is completely 100% underneath WEMC's prerogative to do anything they so wish. So the end of April, but then it's really it's not really a step change. It's more of a consistent, gradual development. So for example, the thing that we're working on at the moment is a mobile version, and then after that, we're actually going to bring in some worldwide data at final temporal resolution. So using what's called the ERA 5 data, which is very much more comprehensive. But in terms of feedback, there's a couple of ways that can be done. So if you go into the demo and you click on the hamburger menu in the top right hand side, you can click on some links there that will give you some feedback. And if you go to the project webpage as well by clicking on the resource links, then it will give you some ways of feeding back to us there. So there's a contact form that people can get onto. But as you've used what we've got at the moment, if you use the demo for about, I think it's 5 minutes or longer, you get a pop-up come up that allows you to send some feedback in also. So there's various ways that people can do that.
That's great. What is the hope that educators get out of this at the end of the day?
Oh, well, as we know what's happening right now, millions of young people, across the globe are engaging in climate and energy conversation at every level. So, questions like what is climate change? What are the impacts of climate change? How can we mitigate and adapt to climate change? And all of these questions are prevalent in schools. And I know that my ex-colleagues and geography teachers in schools, there's a huge heightness of climate anxiety amongst their students, and anxiety where it could be quite detrimental. It's also like burst these students' passion and curiosity for climate change. So what things like this do, because it's not a straightforward topic, is that these data visualizations of climate change, using scientifically robust services like C3S, can help answer some of the questions that they have. And there are so many websites and tools like this that are out there, which are not aimed for high school students, but they've been put out there. I'm sure that your listeners are aware of plenty of geospatial apps online and GIS type services online that any good teacher will take and make a resource out of. But what we've done is that national curriculums, particularly in the United Kingdom and Europe, absolutely require the skill of using GIS tools and geospatial data nowadays. So, my personal opinion, what better way of combining the desire, the demand, and from the students with the science than something that we're producing like this.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the overview of the C3S climate and energy education demo. I think that was been very useful and insightful, especially how much attention is garnered on Twitter, for example. And I also want to highlight that's also why the tool is so important, not just to increase the geospatial education and resources of educators, but just to create awareness of climate change and world energy, the overall status and situation of it globally, correct?
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, I actually
I have to give a.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It's again, there's just a bit of a lag going on. But what I would say, credit must go to the whole WEMC team, really. Alberto Chocolate at the top, and I want to give a shout out to Eleanor, the designer, and Luke and Will, who do a lot of in-house development and all the data engineering, and our comms officers as well, who've been really pushing all that Twitter thing. So I think it absolutely, and our partners at C3S, who have been amazing and patient and supportive of us. So I just want to make sure I got a shout out of all those people.
Awesome. Well, hopefully the lag isn't too bad, because I got one more question for you, and that's connected to talk to me quickly about your background and what drove you to being where you are today, and your inspiration for doing so much for world energy and climate change.
Wow. Oh, where do I start? So,
let's. We can always come back for a second episode if you want to do a deeper dive, but let's keep that simple.
I will keep it simple. So, so it really all started. I had an amazing geography teacher at high school myself, and I know in the United States, you kind of we lump geography all together. So you guys would do social science, earth sciences, natural sciences, physical sciences, but we lump them all in together in something called geography. And I had an amazing geography teacher, and I then went to do environmental science at the University of East Anglia, and then I did a teacher training course, and I ended up teaching geography at high school. And I was a high school geography teacher for 13 years here in the United Kingdom. Became head of department, but I absolutely love to branch out and do outreach stuff. So not only did I teach students in my own school, but I did teacher training, and I've done lectures across the country. But because when I did environmental science at the University of East Anglia, my passion was meteorology and climate change, and I was so fortunate and so lucky to be taught by some of the world's leading climate scientists. So, some of your listeners have probably heard of the Climatic Research Unit at the University of East Anglia, and some of these are leading authors of the IPCC, like Professor Keith Briffa, Professor Mike Hulme. I was lucky enough to be taught by these people, and they really inspired my passion, not just for climate change, but for really looking at the data and being critical with it, and not taking it for face value, and making sure you're looking at every possible thing that this data could be showing. What is it missing? And so that curiosity is just blossomed in me. And in fact, I took a break, a year sabbatical, if you so like, where I came to the United States. My wife is American, so the United States was a natural place, but I ended up working for 2 months at NOAA in Boulder, Colorado, which was absolutely incredible. So the leading scientists at the David Skaggs Center in Boulder, Colorado. So I did 2 months with them, releasing air balloons and going up on flights, and that was just incredible. And then at a science museum, the Exploratorium in San Francisco, and I could teach the public and more people about weather and climate, and then I landed the job at the World Energy and Meteorology Council, where I've continued that work, combining my teaching and expertise with my meteorology and climate expertise, and working with scientists. So it's been quite a wild ride, and that is really the long story short.
No, I appreciate it. That's an inspirational story, and I always love hearing people's backgrounds on how they got where they are today. I think that's an important background. It keeps you motivated with what you do in the industry and data research and science. But I also think it's a kind of a light of inspiration for others who are interested in the same thing and say, hey, how did they get involved? How hard was it for you? How hard is it going to be for them? And most people don't realize sometimes it's just inspiration of key individuals. It's not a matter of how much work. It's what keeps you motivated about a specific topic.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. And I think the biggest piece of advice I could ever give someone is network, and even if you're shy and introverted, really do push the boat out and try and meet as many people who have the same passions, and push the boat out. Try and speak to these leading people in the field that you're interested in. Why not? They're just human beings like everyone else. They might be on a pedestal with the work that they do, but you have no idea how much they appreciate a chat or a talk or an email, and just say, well, I would like to pick your brains for this stuff, and just formulate connections. And one of my ex-students I think is doing the right thing. So she's taken a secretary job at an energy company here in the United Kingdom, but she's fully graduated with all this stuff, so she could do a lot more than she's doing. But she's gone in there, and she's little bit by little bit dropping hints to her boss to say, I'd like to be involved with this project. Can I maybe do the data analysis on this? And she's going to go places. Absolutely.
That's great. That's awesome. So as we wrap up, any other last words you want to talk about or mention regarding the World Energy and Meteorology Council, or any last tidbits that you want to put out there?
So no, I've given my shout out. So say this is not something that I've done alone. This is all those people I mentioned a bit earlier. So they've done an amazing job on this, and I'm very fortunate to work with people with such expertise. So and I would just strongly recommend that, especially people listening to this because of geospatial data and whatnot, really do check out the Copernicus stuff. So all of their services that they do, because they really do lots of amazing geospatial data. Sign up for their monthly bulletins, for example, easily searchable online. Just search for the Copernicus services, Copernicus EU, Copernicus ECMWF, all those kind of things, and do check them out.
Well, we're going to include all those links that you mentioned in the show notes for both the audio and when we post on YouTube. We appreciate you having you on, Kit, and talking about not just the World Energy and Meteorology Council, but also about the C3S Climate and Energy Education demo, which I think is a very useful for educators there around the world.
And thank you so much for having me, Adam. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, this is Adam Simmons with Project Geospatial, signing off.